Cool. This is reaction time. We're here. That's how we start this business. Anyway, I'm David. I'm back. That's Steven. That's Eric. We're here. There have been games. They were played. We have champions in 3 of the 4 main regions of League of Legends. There's been a little bit of EU Masters that we're not going to talk about. There's been a lot of proving grounds that we're not going to talk about. We're going to talk about championships because you play to win the game, as they say. So, Eric, how are you now?
I lost.
I'm doing all right. My LCS bracket was off in only 2 matches, which felt pretty good. And I'm totally cool with TSM losing being one of the things that I got wrong.
Agreed. Steven, how are you doing?
Great. Team Liquid totally won, and they are the champions, and that is the reality I live in.
Lol.
That's a false reality.
Swept. I thought they would get swept.
Oh my god.
They put up a damn good fight. I'll give them that.
Jensen got scared. It made me so sad.
And that's where we'll begin, is with Team Liquid's sad and depressing to some of us loss in the LCS Grand Final in a 5-game epic series against Cloud9. So, Steven, I will start with you. They didn't win, but are you satisfied with what you saw in 5 games with no Santorin?
Yes, I think it's I would not chalk up anything to Armeo's detriment. He did amazing. If anything, Tactical and Jensen made me a little frustrated, to be honest, and that's what cost him the series in my observations. Jensen's Twisted Fate would pour it in on the far side of a fight, maybe engage, but he would just dance the out, he would not get up in them guts. And I believe he was even doing the Shirelia's build, so it's you can come on the cutoff, you can cut him off at the pass, but you have to go in. And I believe there's 2 fights around Dragon that he just poured it in, maybe got a kill or no kills, danced on the outside, and then just didn't commit. And that was in the last game, and you can't do that.
Eric, what were your thoughts on the big final?
I just want to, while Armeo, formerly known as Greg, did a good job in not being the weak link on their team, unlike TSM, TL clearly went in with a solid game plan for punishing solo lane communication with the rookie jungler. You could see this by them solo killing, or not solo, but first blood killing Alfari in top lane every game of the series.
All 5.
All 5. And it's that is a clear strategy that they went into this with, of trying to punish the fact that the jungler isn't going to be quite as coordinated with top lane going in. Other than that, I'm super glad that Cloud9 won Game 5 with a lane swap. It shows you where the true talent from G2 is now. It's on Cloud9. And so watching Perks and Sven orchestrate this lane swap nonsense where they that poor Alfari gets thrown into the meat grinder for the 5th game in a row was incredible that they managed to pull that stuff off again.
So it's the lane swap plus dead Scion start. Give it the whole thing, because you also the dead Scion cheese strat where you start on the Gromp.
Yeah.
And do all that was a part of how all of this came together in a beautiful tap game.
RAP.
I will also note that lane swap first seen in the LCO finals, by the way. I believe it was Pentanet who ended up winning the LCO and will be at MSI as the OCE representative, who pulled this exact same strategy out in the LCO Grand Finals.
Oh, with the Dead Scion too?
I think they had the Dead Scion as well.
So that must be where they got this info from somehow. That's
forbidden
crazy.
strats.
Shout out to Pabu.
Yeah, because he got both blue buff and Gromp too. So it's just like, here's Armeo in this huge relevant stage game, and he has one quadrant available, level 1 in game 5 of the series. Like, sucks. He did his
Scummy.
job though, which he got his revenge on TSM, and that's all that really matters.
I think that it sets the table so nicely for split for the rest of the season, because Santorin's going to be back. I feel pretty confident in saying that. I think there was at least a little bit of question as to whether or not he would play in the final. Although I think them resting him is just fine. I think it's just fine. It sucks for them, but his health is more important, and I wholly respect that decision. But TL went out and proved that even with all C9 have done, even with all C9 have invested, even with perks, TL can still hang with them. And I think there's every expectation that they should be able to still hang with them, playing their entire starting five moving forward. So I think that, like, for the top two, these two teams who were in the final, that really sets the table for a tasty run up to Worlds through the rest of the season, because that's every one of those games should be super duper hype. Like, it's the stories there that, like, this isn't just C9 running the show like everybody, myself included, thought it was going to be. I thought this wasn't going to be close. And now, like, TL's like, yeah, we're still here. We're still really good. And it's going to be really fun to see how that develops moving forward.
The other, like, positive thing I wanted to say about TL is, like, I did think that both teams went into this best of 5 with a couple of unique, like, from draft strategies or set stuff, which was pretty cool. In game 3, TL did something that you don't really see in NA or EU, where they blinded both solo lanes first rotation after they saw Cloud9's first 2 picks come out, and then just, like, designing this draft to, like, super punish Blabber for picking like a Nocturne or like a hard engage, and, like, for C9 as a whole to pick some hard engage comp. By, like, grabbing the Gangplank and Orianna like that early on, they really set them into this awkward spot where you have to draft this engage comp in order for it to make sense. But that means you have to, like, pick either like a losing top lane matchup into Alphari's Gangplank, or you have to, like, pick Karma, which does not belong inside of how your comp operates. And like, it played out in, like, some of, like, these later game dragon fights where you could really see that Cloud9 struggled trying to, like, both engage in and then also like do damage in safe ways in these fights, as Gangplank ult is dropping on their backline, as, like, the Thresh is, like, bailing out Tactical from, like, all of
Again.
harm and life struggles, and it just, like, worked very well. So, like, so they did have some good strategies of their own going into this series with, and when they worked, they looked very good.
And I think, speaking on going into Worlds, like, getting Santorin, and, like, we see that Tactical has more growth to do, and I think that's not necessarily a bad thing. I mean, granted, I'd love for him to be the best that he can be now, uh, but we know he can do better, and we know he actually has a champion pinch, and so if he can open that up to where he's not such a Tristana liability or a meta adaptation liability, if he gets his positioning. Jensen had weird positioning and weird flanks too, especially on that Victor game. So we're not. I still don't say we've seen the best from any of those players. And so if we're really going to put the best teams forward into Worlds, I'm hoping that they can push with C9 to really actually be a contender outside of groups.
On the C9 side, you have the MVP, Blabber. You have Fudge, arguably playing, I mean, the best series he's played, pretty much, period, at all. He hasn't played many, but this one takes the cake. And you have, this is why you spent all that money on perks, because he wins championships. This is why you spent the money, because he wins the championships. It's that simple. He, like,
That last game, he was bonkers.
yeah, like, he's insane.
The last game was bonkers. Like, one of the other like huge things about G2 that like has really impressed me, or not G2, the G2 elements in Cloud9 now. Holy cow! Like G2 is no longer G2; they're just like Fnatic 2.0. One of the things that's really impressed me with C9 with this Perks Ven lineup is that they're one of the few teams where it looks like they have winning shots in fights where they have like less scaling or less tools available than their opponents. That game one of this series, where TL has an outscaling draft, C9 built this full early game comp. Blabber like fucks up mid game by flash bear slapping somebody and then not being able to fight on like the dragon that would have won them the game. But then like they were still in it for like another 20 minutes, and like most teams, like we saw in some of the games in EU playoffs, like just completely crumble in that situation as soon as they get outscaled, and like they just don't know how to play these fights and they start falling apart. Whereas like with Cloud9, I didn't see that. Like here they are with this, Callista comp and sticking in it, even though like the scalings hit, they're in serious trouble. They still found fights and were still fighting in ways that other teams just couldn't do. And like that's super incredible. That like that they in these like coin flip scenarios, they still win out. And so like that gives me super like um high hopes for MSI and seeing this team compete at the top level, because they're not just going to crumble like we have seen happen before, is like what I have seen from them now. That like even if the draft isn't optimal, or if somebody gets behind, they're not going to just like let their strat being discovered like take them out of the whole set or out of playoffs, which we saw earlier on with Dig, with 100 Thieves, with TSM in NA, where as soon as their one strat was found out, they were just knocked over, and that won't happen here. So even with all that praise, the odds of like this team being able to take out Damwon or the winner of the LPL finals between RNG or FPX, I think is very low. Both of those teams are much, or all three of those teams are just much cleaner and higher execution ceiling than frankly what Cloud9 even in this series really showed. So I do think they can grow a lot from this and maybe clean up some macro some more. I think they actually might get more out of MSI than Team Liquid would have, which is very scary because Core has been good at keeping TL in line with like some fundamentals of the game, whereas Cloud9, like I think would really grow from having people who challenge them more on these things. So like as far as like standings go, like 3 actually seems achievable, which is where I'd be excited. Like I think this team can take out Mad Lions in like a, if they get to a best of set potentially, which is really cool. And that isn't a spot I would have felt confident saying that with, last year G2 being the competition from Europe as they're going into this series or into MSI. Like I wouldn't expect them to be able to take out any of these other top teams, and I'd be nervous about Taiwan. But that doesn't look like the spot that we'll be in this time.
And is
Speaking
there
of Mad Lions. Nope, go Steven.
Okay, yeah. Is there, so what's the lead up time to MSI? Because MSI kickoff in a month? Is it even that long? 2 weeks? Okay.
Yeah.
So,
So the LPL finals are this weekend,
Mhm.
and then next week is MSI.
Yeah, so there is some time to. They already showcased that they are willing to pick up and implement some cheddar cheese strats, or like cover up some lack of fundamentals to take off some best of ones. I hope they do that. Like just get into the best of 5 scenarios where you can like really showcase your abilities rather than just getting knocked out because you're dropping games because you're I don't know, getting punished by something that you didn't expect, or a band that's a little bit stronger that you let through.
Okay, anyway, speaking of Mad Lions, they're going to MSI.
Yeah.
None of us had that.
No. Well,
Eric was high on Mad Lions, but not that high on Mad
No.
Lions.
I thought for sure G2 was going to run the lower bracket and then win the final. I think most people did. But then, as I kind of alluded to earlier, they kind of are looking less like G2 now in clutch moments and looking more like Fnatic 2.0. Because like the thing you got to remember is that Caps and Reckless have played on the same team before, and we've seen what their team's late game shot calling when things aren't going great looks like. And this started to feel more like that and less like G2, which is very scary for like what comes next for that org, even if Wonder does start getting into better shape.
My G2 note, can we just acknowledge that once again, in a playoff setting, Reckless's champion pool was a problem?
I mean, it was
He didn't bust
Reckless's
out
champion
Janna.
pool. It was well, he played bot lane Karma. Like it's like he played supports bot lane, and they had a comp with that they used to like to medium effect, I would say, where like they won against Schalke with it. But then they go into like the next set and it looked like that was really all they had prepped. They were super reliant on these like over flexing. And like flex picks are very powerful in any meta when they let you change up how your comp plays and what you're doing in the game. And then if they give you favorable lane matchups. The problem with what G2 was trying to do with this like super Karma flex and super Seraphine flex and super, nonsense is that your team comp still plays the exact same after 15 minutes. Like you're not actually changing your team's strategy or game plan by changing which of your laners is on Karma. You're just shifting which lane you have prio in the early game. And because they weren't winning early game, it didn't do anything. Like they just had one comp, one look, and it failed. And that's really scary that they couldn't adapt well in like after that strat got found out with Caps on the AD carry.
Look,
Also,
G2
like
having to ban Jinx, first ban blue side, that whole series is pathetic.
yeah.
And he should be able to play Jinx.
Yes, he should. Particularly when you're building Karma Seraphine comps. You know what goes really well with that? A freaking hyper carry.
The only functional one right now.
I mean, you can play Aphelios, but like,
it really felt like they were one look, and that like Wonder's champion pool, like it's super awkward because it felt like a lot of their strat was involved around getting good lanes by doing this flexing, and like I said, it fell apart after that point because like what I'm envisioning in my head in this pick ban in all these games is Wonder saying, yeah, I can win lane on Karma. And it's like that's where the conversation is ending almost, where it's like, can you win lane? And they keep saying yes. And then even if they do win lane, it's not translating. And they weren't always even winning the lanes because junglers do exist. And it was very sad across the board where like they were picking for like these like the same style that they picked in last year. It's just that the champions that they were doing with it are very wrong. So like it definitely feels more than just like player capabilities, because like they still all played out of their minds in these games. Reckless like taking Dragon with fourth Jin shot from ultimate in one of these games,
And killing someone.
and killing somebody at the same time. Yeah,
Killed the
like there
guy.
was some incredible like skill expression from Caps and from Reckless in some of these games, but like as a whole their team was just completely dysfunctional. And this has happened with Reckless in the past, and it's not a good look.
anyway, we've talked a lot about the team that lost in the semifinals. we need to talk about Rogan Mad Lions because
What?
like seriously, what a series! That was just like I had Rogue winning the split. I said that in our playoff preview. I had every bit of confidence that they were going to win Game 5, and they got close. Larson was incredible the whole series. Like, and LEC is wide open going to summer, is all I'm going to say. I could see either of those two teams winning it. I could see G2 figuring it out and coming back and winning it. I could see somebody else coming out of left field. Like, Mad and Rogue are the ones that made it to the final. They deserve to be there. Rogue has finished top or near top of the league in two consecutive splits. Like, those are the teams we should be talking about now. The narrative was burned into our brains during that series a little bit of new guard takes over for the old guard, but that's what this is. Like, this is Matt and Rogue's time.
Yeah, and kudos to those organizations for like building these so quickly. In my eyes, like we've had North American like orgs like try to accomplish this kind of thing. But this is very impressive to see, and the equity within, like, because Mad Lions was like a complete like unknown roster to begin with, and then they really they went to Worlds, they win here. um it's awesome. I think it's the coolest like coming of age story.
Well, and like that we keep in mind that they dropped two players from that roster that did go to Worlds and went badly. And Elyoya's rise has, like, if you look at his career progression, it is just insane. Like, he went, I think he's gone like straight up the minor leagues in like 3 splits to, oh, I'm a rookie and I just won the LEC on an org for the first time, which doesn't happen in the LEC. It does not happen.
First like stage games are like LEC playoffs. And like pops off like turret dives his Boulder Bear level 3. So, you know, like cojones. Like, and this is a part of why I was like super hype about, like, you know, Elyoya being put in this spot where I think that he's been through a crucible this split. Whereas Inspired has been given all these tools and so has really evolved and adapted as this intellectual jungler with like a very solid game sense and like how he approaches the game in theory. And then there's Elyoya, who's been like given nothing and has to work with it. And so like he now like has been put in every high pressure scenario I believe that you can be put into short of Worlds finals in the regular season and playoffs here in LAC because his teammates have forced him through this. So it's like a really good spot for like a career perspective. He's one of the players from this org that I think would be able to translate well into a team following this. And you would have no like doubts about him being able to show up and do his job because of like just like how much like pressure he's already been put through in order to get this far.
And I think this is a good chance to mention what we talked about in duo lane, where do Mad Lions build around Elyoya and possibly Armut? Like, they showed up and like keep Elyoya at least, like he's just starting, like get him signed up, get him the components that he needs where he doesn't have to be the saving grace, to where he can just do whatever he wants. And like, this is a really monster roster if he gets just a little bit more security to manipulate the field.
Carzzy still looks a bit out of meta or out of form, and so like if Carzzy gets to play his power picks like the Jinx, which was perma banned against him a lot, like I have very high ceilings from the whole roster. One thing to call out though is that going into MSI and later tournaments, picking Wukong against these other teams in the world isn't just going to like give you 2 free wins like it really did in this series. So in game 3, they're down 0-2 in this series. Armut's like, lock me Wukong and I'll win this game against like double 80 carry, double enchanter comp from Rogue, which was hard winning the early game and looked very impressive. Like a part of what looked so good about this and like this turnaround from them to me wasn't just that Armut looked very good on this champion. It's that it looked to me that Rogue had no clue how to play against Wukong in League of Legends. My favorite moment was when Larson on Tristana ults the Wukong spinning clone away from himself through his teammates. That was like the highlight of this game to me, where as soon as I see that, it's like, okay, you need to ban this champion. You don't know how to play against this, and it's very bad. If like this is how you're gonna lose this game. And it was like Larson had no clue how to play against Wukong in this series. And so that wasn't even a top lane matchup where it's like where Odo was doing anything incorrectly or off. It's that like his other teammates just didn't know how to play against this like one trick. And so like I thought they should have banned it going into game 4. They ended up not, and they lost that game for some different reasons, which were very brutal. But like that to me was like the big difference maker there, is that it wasn't just that he was good, it's that they had no clue how to play against it.
It's still a value add because like you didn't even get to pull out Malphite. Which is another thing that takes like at least a little bit of understanding how to like flash out of the bush and whatever.
Well, and like the other thing is, if we look at directly group stage, they don't have the NA problem where C9 has Damwon in their group, where like Mad Lions in theory should be the best team in their group. So they're gonna get to ease into this a little bit more than C9 will, because they don't have that monster sitting there until a theoretical playoff run, and I think that's going to be important for their progression. I don't think they're going to 06 this one.
No.
With that said, we have a third champion. The by far worst playoffs of all of them, exactly as we called it, was the LCK playoffs, in which one interesting thing happened at all, and that was Genji beating T1 convincingly. And in the end, Damwon won, and nothing else mattered, and they're the best team in their region by a lot.
So what happened in game 2 of that set? Because I'm looking at score lines here, David, and I see that Ruler had 14 kills on Tristana, and that they had a 4K gold lead at like 15 minutes. Did they just like get caught out, or how did they lose that?
I believe I told you to watch that game, because that game was
Okay.
That game was a good time. There was some unfortunate decision making involved, and some unfortunate objective fights involved, as so often happens in these playoff settings. And it was one of those where like Genji had a really good chance to win game 2, and then didn't, and then game 3 wasn't close. It was one of those. Like, it could have been interesting, but Damwon are really good. That's it. They might be the best team in the world. Probably are. And
Just
like,
from current form, yeah.
What it comes down to. So, like, I don't have that much to say about them. I think they're probably the favorites going into MSI. I would have said that 3 weeks ago. We learned nothing new about them in this playoffs run. That's honestly the problem with them, as opposed to any playoffs from any other region and any champion coming out of any other region, is they weren't really tested. And kind of haven't been at all this whole split. Which could mean that there's something there. But it also could just mean that they are really just that much better than everyone else. And I'm kind of leaning towards that.
when you look at strength of field, like T1 and Genji are not bad teams, and they do understand some fundamentals on how to play the game. Genji has their late game shot calling weaknesses, which cost them a bit, and T1 is still, getting all of their ducks in a row.
T1 only think you have their best roster with 5 games left in the season. Oh no! How could you have done this?
Yeah, but they both are like very strong teams. So when I look at that league, I definitely felt like the competition for Dam 1 was better than the competition in NA, at least, if not necessarily EU, at least at the third team level. Like TSM is definitely weaker than those other teams in LCK. And so like being challenged, like if we look at strength of field, I think it's better than like some of these other regions that we're seeing going forward. One thing I think is interesting about this series is what you pair with Senna in lane. And so like there's been this kind of like default assumption in the West that you pair Senna bot with Tom Kench has kind of been how teams not named Mad Lions have been doing things. And it's actually kind of flawed. Like the reason Tom Kench is good as like the money sink to put in lane with the Senna is that Tom Kench gives you a way to bail out of single target pick potential CC or single target burst damage. So if you're up against an Ashe, a Syndra, or like some single target burst focus, you're redirecting their CC onto your like giant pot of HP who does nothing. And that's like very good for your team comp. But if you're up against like AoE burst or AoE damage and like not necessarily like pick potential, you actually don't want Tom Kench because it doesn't do as much. Like dodging a Jinx W or getting out of like a bear slap isn't as good for your team fight as like getting out of an Ashe arrow is really how it works.
To put a meta spin on it, it's Tom Kench is much better into Nidalee than he is into.
Right. Where like you're dodging out of like an important part of their team fight. Whereas like another option I would say is like much better into Syndra than Victor is like the key big one to me. Where like picking somebody up out of gravity field while they're in Chaos Storm doesn't really save you much. And Victor is still dealing massive damage to your whole team while you're out of the fight in Tom Kench. So your team as a whole is losing in this scenario, even if you're protecting Senna for like 1 to 2 seconds. And so we saw this in Game 5 of the Mad Lions Rogue series, where Rogue is really far ahead with the Senna Tom Kench bot lane and is like in this fight for Dragon Soul to win the game. And then Mad Lions just all ins, like throws everything at the Senna. And their damage and zone control with Victor is enough to just melt Rogue's entire team comp, both in the like second and a half where Hansama is out of that fight, and then after Hansama comes out, his team is wrecked. And then it's like a single Senna versus the world is really what it looked like. And then they still were able to chase Hans down for the kill. Like that's a scenario where this Tom Kench saving Senna doesn't do enough for you. You need something that can create zones of control to prevent the counter dive, which outputs a ludicrous amount of damage, which also can protect itself with its Zonias in inventory. You need something like support Heimerdinger, giving all the gold in your bot lane, like what Beryl played in Game 1 of the LCK final. Because that is much harder to deal with as a team comp when you're trying to go in than a Tom Kench is.
Like, they played Heimerdinger in this series and won comfortably because it was good. I love this team. They're so much fun. We should also touch on LPL. LPL is not done yet, but we probably heard it is on the final. RNG came out of the lower brackets to match up against Did someone say Fun Plus Phoenix was going to go far in this tournament? Huh.
It was you.
It was me.
Yeah.
I was the one that said.
I felt good about getting them into top 4. I was less sure that they would beat both Royal and EDG, one of them comfortably, but I am very satisfied that they did. And now, like, you go into this final against Royal, who come through an awesome series against EDG. That was 5 great games. Eric and I watched both of those. Both watched that set, I think, live basically together, and we're talking about it the whole time. But FPX goes from the, 6 seed? 5 seed? 6 seed? To, they are arguably the favorite in the final, because the last time they saw Royal, they stomped them 3-0 and it wasn't close. That's quite the rise in a couple of weeks.
A part of you has to wonder, like, if they hadn't had like huge jungle turmoil in this split, if they had come in higher, if they would have come into this tournament higher seeded, because it really feels like they were top 2 for a decent part of the regular split before they ran into problems with their main roster, and then after they stabilized, they've like kind of returned to form. Like, I remember earlier on, it was EDG, RNG, and FPX who were really the 3 front runners, and so like they were rapidly able to course correct and get here, and they've already played. They already played 2 and 3 and beat both. Like, that's a really strong position of power to go into the finals with, similar to like what Mad Lions had in EU, where like if you beat G2 and Rogue in the upper bracket already in this double elim tournament and go into the final with that, like that's a very strong position to be in, at least from a mental perspective, if nothing else, from like what you can expect.
And like, Tien finding form has been notable. Doinby's in, again, the best form of his life. He keeps doing this at the right times. Not a soul in the world knew he was going to play Akali in the EDG set. And then he goes out and just dumpsters Scout in Game 5. Doinby is not the player that does that to you in lane. He never has been, not once. Then he breaks out the assassin pick in Game 5 in the semifinals and whips you with it and solo kills you under your tower in front of your jungler at 7 minutes and gets away. They're terrifying.
I like to think that he took that from Knight, because Knight had been playing Akali in the top esports series, and like Knight had looked good in that series. They lost because they're top esports and they throw games, but like this is like but I like to think that he saw that work and he's like, I can play that. That's not. I can do that.
He went into the EDG series with a career 20% win rate on Akali.
Bark.
Well, it's higher now.
To be clear, like,
yeah,
1 in 4.
Is that old Akali or new Akali?
I think new, but like,
it's mainly new.
It hasn't been good for him ever.
Yeah, like the other thing that I noticed with that, on the flip side, is that EDG stopped picking like Scout's power picks and started putting him more on these control mages where he hadn't looked as strong in playoffs in like later on in that series, and it showed, because like when Scout had Prio on Silas or on some other like more aggressive champion, they looked stronger as a team, and so like I do want to put some shade on the side of EDG for like figuring out how their team comp worked and then letting RNG pull their cheese top lane in that series as well. But like that's like the other side of this is that like EDG did struggle a bit with strategy, I would say, and how to approach both series. And FPX has not struggled with strategy. They're also a great team at eating pressure or at eating your strats. Like they are the team up there with like Cloud9 and NA that's really good at figuring out what your strat is and how you're approaching the map and then punishing it or like not letting it beat them. Like RNG tried against FPX the same strat they used to beat EDG of like just hard camp top lane, and it didn't work. FPX read that, and Nuggery is too good for that to like actually cost them a series, which is pretty crazy. Like when you think about like eating pressure and then like surviving in these like scenarios where you're getting hard camped at a professional level. But like that's one of the strengths of this team is that they have a lot of mental fortitude as well as just like smart gameplay on the Rift for figuring out like how to approach difficult situations or play off-centered team fights in order to get stuff done.
You almost forget that FPX employs arguably the best top laner in the world, because they're still mostly who they are when they won the world championship a couple of years. But they have arguably the best top laner in the world, and it helps.
What I think would be crazy about going into MSI is if FPX wins this final, and then goes into MSI with a strong lead. Like Karsa and Sword Art both fell short at Worlds this past year. What if Stake is actually the true carry from Flash Wolves, who ends up getting a professional title at a world level? Because here he is, head coach of FPX. They look so much better this year than last year, and the main change was Stake. Like Nuggery is great, fantastic, but they had Khan before, who was no slouch and is now on Damwon winning an LCK. Like the while Nuggery is fantastic, and this was an upgrade for their team stylistically, like the big difference has to both be the meta as well as the coaching and support staff changes that went through with this team. So like Stake coming in and making a difference is another thing to look out for like, you know, like who from Flash Wolves really let them succeed for as long as successfully as they did.
Anyway, speaking of bad top laners, I need you to defend Flandre for me. Boy, that RNG EDG series was bad.
He got hard camps. Like they didn't know how to play around it, which was very tragic. I think honestly it was more Jeje getting like very outclassed. Like Wei is an incredible jungler and is very good at pressure. Where was Wei before this split? I'm trying to remember. Was he on B5? Let's see. Gonna check this. Oh, he was on E-Star. That's right. Okay. So he was on E-Star like last year and was like the saving grace of that team. And like now here he is on RNG and like really out pressured Jeje in a lot of these key encounters, even in the games when his laners weren't winning on their own, and was able to like take over the map, create pressure, and put them into these winning situations. And kind of I put Flandre in a similar thing to what happened. I put Flandre in a similar situation to what happened in Alphari in the final, where he gets like first blooded every game, and like the jungler is hard camping his lane, only he doesn't have a sub jungler. Like this is their starting jungler who they've played with all split, who just gives him no support. And then he gets put in these like really awkward scenarios. Like another like key thing when looking at like top lane matchups in particular to me is like when junglers, I think that jungle is like one of the like early game jungle has a great like mental game factor by offering up free money in the early game at a pro level, where like if you as a pro jungler see that the enemy jungler is putting you in a spot to vertical jungle where like you can have bot side, they have top side, but your top laner is Jason to Gnar, you shouldn't take it. And like this is like one of the traps that NA teams in particular have been really bad about, but like happened here, where Jeje then has and does the clear double bot side, but then his theoretically winning top lane is put into this island scenario against a freezing Gnar. When the enemy team has this has like a ganking jungler, and that is a terrible spot to be in. And then he dies repeatedly. Like the first death is like kind of forced, but then like they keep getting it to happen. And and this didn't happen to Nuguri and FPX because they read it and the jungler adapted properly in backing up the top laner, as well as Nuguri is better at not getting froze against. So, like, I definitely think that Flandre and EDG, for some reason, weren't expecting it in this series. They didn't expect that top lane punish. They picked different counter picks in multiple games into the Gnar, thinking it would get them wins, and it did not. And that's very bad. So, like, I blame him for dying repeatedly to these ganks, but this is LPL. That's what happens. It's just like, it just ended very badly, and I really think it was more jungle diff than top diff.
I think I understand that neither Eric nor I are believing members of the Church of Jiahu.
I mean, I think he's a mid laner and top lane.
I think he's a good top laner. I think he's good at League of Legends. I don't think he's a good top laner.
He's very good at freezing lanes and at like playing mages or AD carries in top lane. Like, he's a mid lane player in top lane, and it works for them. But like against a real team, it's going to be a lot harder.
It already was once, and it's
Yeah.
going to be again on Sunday. Like that's the thing is I said this to Eric right when Royal finished the win over EDG in the semifinal. That's the matchup I want if I'm cheering for FBX, because you can beat the crap out of that team really easily. You already did once, and you're going to do it again. Steven, how do you feel about Jason the Gnar? Does it make you happy?
Yeah, as long as you exploit it, like, you have to. Like, you can't just, like, unless, like, you're, like, some kind of god split pusher, and you could, like, when the Gnar decides to collapse into the team fight eventually and actually utilize what that champion does. But I don't want to see any NA Jaces into anyone else's Gnar.
Look, the comparisons of Flandre to Sword from Griffin in 2019 were unfortunate on a number of levels. Because, yeah, it was... Viper was so good in that series. Oh, like, if you want to watch an ADC hard carry a game, watch Game 4 of that series. Viper was unbelievable.
Yeah.
I've never seen an ADC do some of the stuff he did that game.
That's what I want to watch AD carries play like when their team is running it down. I don't want to see people play like Upset or Reckless. Like, I want to see you play like Viper and like dish out the damage, go for the kills, win your team the game, put it on your back, like.
Or Sven Game 5 is the
or
other.
Sven Game 5. Yeah, like play like Sven, play like Viper, like put it on the line. Don't like back up and do no damage in team fights because you're afraid of getting popped.
Okay, last one, and then we'll wrap up. Eric, how many LPL teams are better than every Western team?
Ooh, LPL specifically better than every Western team.
Western team.
I would go with 6 currently.
I think 6.
Maybe 7, but like I would go with 6.
I'm not sure, even as the resident card-carrying Royal Adam fan club member, I can say that RA is better than C9.
RA is kind of where I'm like on the edge.
I have to think about it.
Yeah, like the crazy thing is like look at like, and there's like, they're better in different ways, right? Like, if we look at top esports, I think top esports is like definitively better than every Western team, but they can't like play late game at all. It's just that they'd stomp every lane hard enough that it wouldn't matter. Like, if they did to a Western team what they did to Royal Game 5, I think it was, where Jackie Love is like 8-1 on Draven at like 20 minutes and has like full builds, and then he like runs it down and then they lose the game. Like, a Western team would not be able to stop top esports from that position, even with Jackie Love. Like, it's just not a thing that most teams are able to deal with. And then, you know, if you look at these other teams like RNG or like WE, I think they're better because they just play the game better as a whole, and that's a lot harder to deal with when we're talking about qualitative evaluation. Like these teams
Like-
just know how to play the map and actually win.
Like there's like JDG and Suning, who we haven't talked about yet. I think JDG is comfortably better than every Western team, and they didn't make top 4 of this playoffs. Like
No, they got wrecked. But like JDG and Suning both like are better. Yeah, they. Well, playoff form Suning.
Yeah,
like
Suning
regular
can
season
be.
Suning was pretty loose, but like SOFM put on some master classes in playoffs.
Yep.
So like playoff Suning, I would say yes.
But then like so then you're down to JDG Suning. Okay, you're down to RA. Oh, okay. Then oh god, we have to talk about IG because IG might be better than every Western team.
Yeah. It's like basically the ones that made playoffs are all like in contention.
Except
LNG. Except LNG. Yeah, don't poor Tarzan. But like except for LNG.
I have a hard time disagreeing with it. I could find ways to. Like IG is diet top and they're worse at playing that game.
I think that Mad Lions might be better than IG. So like that's kind of where like I think that Cloud9 and Mad Lions can beat IG
like a year ago.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So IG have gotten a lot worse. It's a problem.
Speaking about just like comparison, so does Damwon look as good in an environment as packed as LPL is, or are they just looking so good and so definitively the best because how lackluster some of these Korean teams are?
I would love to see Damwon play sets against all of the 4 teams that finished top 4 in the bracket here in the LPL, because I think they'd be interesting in different ways. I think they would smash top, but I think that bot lane would be a problem for them in that series, because I worry a little bit, even still after a world championship, about Ghost, and I think that can be justified. But like, everybody wants to see Night Lane against
Showmaker.
Like, I'm here for that. Or
the real question to me is like, which side grows more from you doing that? Like, does Damwon get like how much does Damwon grow from getting to play lots of sets against these more chaotic LPL teams that don't roll over as much, right? That's like one of the like Korean teams are very good at cross mapping, right? You pressure them for objectives, they go to the other side. They don't they it's more of a like play not to lose in a macro sense. Whereas
it's not 10 people on the river at 8 minutes, which happened a lot in a lot of the games in the LPL playoffs.
Right. And so LPL teams will actually contest you on every objective. And like they do. And there's like 8 kills by 10 minutes frequently. And so it's like it's a very different style. So like who gets more out of like this stylistic mismatch? Like do the LPL teams like figure out more about how to play the map and then become really disgusting? And then we have like 6 Damwons running around? Or is it that Damwon like gets pressured and then like figures out how to deal with more threats because they haven't had enough yet? And so then they go into Worlds on like peak form, able to absolutely slaughter everyone. Because I'm not sure which way it would go. I actually kind of err the side of Damwon, like in the short term. Whereas like in the short term, Damwon would look fantastic and go in as clear favorites for Worlds, is where I would stand. But in the long term, like LPL teams grow when you give them tools. And
Yep. So watch the LPL finals this weekend. I'm sure there'll be an opening ceremony. I'm sure it'll be ridiculous and hype. They always are. It'll be better than NA's was. I'm sorry, Pentakill, but Dash talking halfway through you was very annoying.
Yeah, they had a weird mic setup too for an outdoor venue, and no one was there. So like, mic them up, right?
Wasn't
please.
Not at all.
I loved
the LPL always shows out for opening ceremony.
So I didn't like the opening ceremony, but I loved the analysts like on top of the letters in the sign in the back or whatever. Like I was a little nervous for them. Like when I'm seeing like, you know, Emily and Mark and Raz up there, it's like if any of them falls and breaks anything, I will cry and it will be tragic. But you know, but it was great. It was really cool seeing them all stand at like different like variable heights and all this stuff. Like that's such a better setting than people on webcams.
Yes.
like this.
I also liked the LCK final opening ceremony a lot because each team had their own rapper, and they were awesome. And Damwon had Mush Venom, who was better, which makes sense. But they did some really cool effects in production with that, and some good trash talk as they always do. So I'm almost as excited for the LPL opening ceremony as I am for it. But then that's pretty much it for the big regions, and then we're to MSI. I know there's a lot of the Proving Grounds and EU Masters going on. That's some good stuff to watch. We didn't get to the one little point about Rogue I wanted to make is that Rogue is turning themselves into a Korean team just in Europe with their talent development because, oh, look, AGO Rogue is at EU Masters and has a bunch of good players. Again, they keep doing this.
We can talk more about EU Masters maybe in another episode because like they're early in groups. They're just in like there's been one day so far of actual games, and for the record, like EU Masters is kind of like MSI or Worlds in that you don't like this is like the time when we see these regions compete against each other for the first time to some extent. Like this is the first time we as fans get to see the teams from the LFL play AGO Rogue.
I did see the LFL had a really good day today.
LFL looks very strong in this tournament, and so like better than last year. So like I actually think that they might be more favorites going into later stages of this than some of these other regions as far as like being able to take this one home.
Has EU Masters like improved their casting talent? Like the times that I catch it, I don't know if I'm just watching like the lesser games and they have like the B team on it, but like it's really hard for me to put it on the background and enjoy it like I usually do when I'm working. So that's been like my biggest barrier to entry on EU Masters.
They have a big cast.
Okay.
So like it does kind of depend on when you register in. I like a lot of the the less known people. Like one of the guys who was on it today I haven't heard before and I thought it was really fun.
Good.
But like yeah, they Cage Roll is going to be casting some of these as well as I forget who else from the LEC level stages on this.
Whippo.
But there's no
Whippo.
damn. No Whippo. But like they do have like some top name talent in the league.
It doesn't even have to be top
Desk,
name in my opinion.
Like I'm curious what they'll do for Desk because I really like their analyst desk. I think Trouble is fantastic and the different people that they have show up on that segment. So like I'm interested for when they bring that back. Because like I get what you're saying with some of the direct content, but it does feel to me like this is slightly lower like production value than LEC, obviously, and because of that, it's just kind of frustrating.
Yeah, because I really want the League of Legends network like to really start shining because this is they didn't seize it the way I wanted it to, but they still got some momentum. Like League all the time, every day, for always. I'm about, and I want that reality. And to me, you really have to have good talent. It doesn't have to be like established talent. It could be brand new talent, but like when you have like the double cast on a game, it's got to be high energy. Like I can't have these monotone just like narrating the game. I need to be casted. I need to be invested.
As a longtime fan of the LCK, I disagree with that wholeheartedly and would hate that.
Well, and then that's might be why I choose the broadcast that I choose.
Yep. I'm here for my podcasts.
The greatest thing was finding out on LOL Esports is that they abridged the LCK games to 10-minute like highlight reels on the pods.
All I'm telling you is you just need to learn Spanish and watch the Spanish casts. That will fix everything you want about a human.
Oh, I'm just an old man. Yeah.
The Spanish cast and I also think that the LCL casts are really high octane. So as far as like things you could be listening to, it's a different style of high octane because
also really good for that for high octane as well. CBL is great watch.
Yeah, I like drunken American football like yelling into the microphone. Like that's
Spanish
when
leagues, CB Law.
Okay.
Watch LVP and watch CB Law.
All right.
That's that. Yep. Yep. That's what you want.
That'd give me the what I'm looking for.
Yep.
Yes.
Eric, what have you been playing?
So I'm trying to get ready for Clash coming up here. So I've not just been playing Tristana. I've added the ridiculous Dark Harvest Sivir as well as like different Varus builds into the mix, and so I've been trying those out to not get hard banned out of every game.
Are you going to play Fasting Senna in Clash?
No. I like generally speaking, the sports I play with are better at Senna than me. So like I would be more likely to play the Heimerdinger or the Brand in the lane with the Senna.
Saying you gotta prep those strats. Steven, what you playing?
I've been pretending to support for Eric so he could practice stuff and we can practice talking. I need to jump back into jungle so I can be not rusty, but
What are you gonna play in Clash?
probably set.
And no one
on set, dude.
for no reason. It'll be like set time.
build tank on it. You can build Chem
Yeah,
tank on
I can do whatever I want with set. I can complete Cloud Car Fiesta. Now, I want to have Udi or Nocturne. Probably is the easiest like win Clash kind of setup. Just like either complete jungle control with like Bear Spanks for ganks and get the laners ahead, or Nocturne can be everywhere and he's
So like if you play Nocturne Udyr, you just add Hecarim and you could play in the LCS these days.
I know exactly. Put me in. I'll just wait for someone to have a migraine or concussion or
Like it's the one frustrating thing about this, and we can end on this, is this entire jungle meta: Hecarim, Udyr, Hecarim, Udyr, Hecarim, Udyr, Hecarim, Udyr, Lilia, Hecarim, Udyr, Hecarim, Udyr.
Nidalee. No, honestly, like I'm not too salty on the jungle meta. I feel like the jungle meta always towards playoffs constricts to about 5. I cannot think of a jungle meta in a playoffs or in a high competition air that is like more than 5 deep.
It's almost like there's the S tier is 2, which is a part of what makes it very frustrating, because like Hecarim and Udyr are like far and away the top 2, and it's a very interesting relationship to me, because like Hecarim is the S tier. Udyr is S tier specifically because it's so good at power clearing and getting an advantage early that you can beat out Hecarim specifically. So it's like the best jungler to play into Hecarim. However, Udyr has a hard time against better team fight or like utility junglers like the Volibear matchup or the Lilia matchup or things like this. So it's like very bizarre to me, because like I actually
all split. It's
Yeah.
why it started to fall out of the meta during the split.
Yeah. So like it's very bizarre, like how that works out, and it still feels like people are solving it, like, and understanding where and when like it's bad, because like the big thing with all pro meta, like from now on with how the jungle works, is that good clear junglers will always be the top of the standings.
Do you think
Fine.
the hilarious make champs be jungleable changes in the patch that hit today are going to do anything weird to pro play? Are we going to see Jungle Darius and Jungle Morgana at top tier?
Jungle
Like,
Morgana is
Morgana,
always a
maybe.
possibility.
Yeah. Morgana maybe, because the clear is good enough. I don't think Darius's clear is actually, even with the changes, is strong enough to like compete at pro level. And
Jungle-
like at our level, great.
Jungle
Like
Zed?
fantastic. Yeah, Jungle Zed. At our level, great. At pro level, like the clear isn't good enough.
Steven
And
has old man hands. Don't let him play Zed.
Boomer hands. Hey, my Zed is clean.
he already said he's back on set duty.
I am
Like,
back on
this-
set
this-
duty. Like
This is solved. He's on set and Malphite. That's it. Like, your
Yeah.
job is to run at them.
Let him play Morg.
Oh, my Morg is pretty gross.
Maybe Dark Binding in a straight line. I'd let you try that.
Yeah, I can flash ult at people.
Oh man.
Uh,
I'm just remembering your Xerath tragedy.
Hey, I'm a
from the
Xerath
other
one
day.
trick. Xerath, the only champion that you are completely capable of doing 0 damage the entire game.
You missing a Xerath W on a CC'd target. Yep.
Oh no, I flashed into a bush, completely panicked. Like you could see my like charge up cursor spin like a fucking helicopter, and all my spells fly out in different directions. Miss that point blank. It's man, that's
So that all his abilities are on cooldown, and there's this like Samira there with like 150 HP who just autos him to death. It was so tragic.
It was the worst thing. Because it's one of those things where I flashed into like pixels of that character, so any movement completely put it out of spell range. And it's like if I just stayed back and not been so cheddar cheese brained, I would have picked that up. But no, I had to get in range. I got to be up in them guts, which is not what you do on Xerath, as I found out.
Oh, what did I picked up Scion. That's the last thing I played in a real game. I had the fortune or unfortune of laning into Yorick on current patch, and that was deeply unpleasant to me. But we won the game because I was a tank, and I knew how to engage in team fights, which is all you need to do when you play tanks.
As of you watching this, they will have cut his E damage in half.
Good.
So like,
it's better now.
Better.
It was awful. I wasn't ready. I came in blind, and Eric's like, "Yeah, he's good. Watch out!" And then like some haze came at me, and the ghouls leaped across for like 100% of my health.
I'm playing Scion, and I'm getting half shot by the E-ghoul. Like
I don't even remember what character I was playing. I was so thoroughly eradicated from the game.
It was not a fun experience, but I'm trying to make sure I add a tank or two to the pool of the top lane champions, but I'm just entirely going to play Fiora and Camille and end my way to success. But
ending your way to success sounds like a great way to join us for Clash this weekend.
Yeah.
Y'all have never once invited me.
No, that's bullshit. We bring it up here like, if you want to lose, let me know. And then it's like, well,
like not one time have I been invited to play Clash. It's because I'm too bad and they know it.
Hey, you carried us that one epic game backdoor call.
Epic game.
Put that up on the shelf.
No, it's Camille and Scion are the things I'm working on. I've gotten Camille and a couple of A-ramps, and so I'm starting to feel out the timing on getting the second Q proc right, which I think is a big way to win the trades with her.
And learning the flash extension.
I mean, she basically does the same thing as Fiora. If I int anyway, I just go split push for the rest of the game and take all your turrets.
You'll be able to play Gwendolyn or Gwynnifer or whatever, that champion. Like, that's AP Fiora, so you should be good to go.
I understand that. see if she has a build. I'm not sure about how her build's going to work, but
like Gnasher's Tooth, first item, probably.
Yep.
And then from there into either a Mythic or Lichbane.
Merman Essence Reaver. Got it.
Easy.
It's just quirky.
Or the Sivir build, or the potential Varus build, yeah.
Or the Teemo build.
Or the Teemo build.
Or just split push. Don't even build anything.
Just auto attack turrets.
Yeah,
doesn't matter if they're
just win the game. Just kill the Nexus.
That's why you're really picking up Scion. Let's be honest.
Is he wrong? Is he wrong? Auto the Nexus even when you're dead.
Yeah. It's really good for taking turrets. You give over a lot of gold in the process, but it's really good at taking turrets. I remember when Suicide Scion was the meta. That was some fun League of Legends experience.
That was a great couple of weeks there before they fixed that.
Tragic.
All right, it's been a delight. It's past all of our bedtimes. So we're going to check out. We'll be back next week. We'll talk about the LPL final, and we will preview MSI with all of the teams that are there. I have no doubt Eric's going to spend the week watching VODs of whoever the LCL representative is and come with a detailed analysis next week.
Oh, no.
That's the kind of guy he is. Only the LCL team, though. Nobody
Only
else.
LCL. Well, maybe Vietnam. I love the Vietnamese teams. Is it going to be...
And I will talk about Pentanet from the LCO and maybe the CBLOL team.
Easy
Pentanet
peasy.
has Pabu, the 1v1 tournament god. That's all you need to know about them. He's great. All right, we'll be back next week. We'll talk more League of Legends. See ya. Oh wait, Steven, plug before we leave.
Merch. Buy the merch at Funky Store. Wow. I did it backwards. Store.
Wow.
The Funky Store. It's that way. We did it. Buy that.
Funky Store.